Yes. So this theme, this topic, of how to deal with the craziness going on in the world, this will benefit us for the rest of our life if we can practice these principles. And when I say practicing them, I mean that we're not always going to be successful. Sometimes it's going to be a bigger challenge than others. And that's why we have so many tools in our toolbox that we can pull out. And sometimes, listening to a positive podcast is the thing to do, or something when we have no capacity to pull out our tools or use them, right? So today I'm going to focus on renunciation. It's one of the 10 paramis or paramitas. These are perfections that the Buddha taught, one of the many lists, that if you can perfect these 10 qualities in your way of being, then you'll be doing well and closer to enlightenment. And then there were the 7 factors of enlightenment too, but renunciation is one of the paramis, along with generosity, sila, morality, wisdom, energy, patience, honesty, determination, loving kindness, and equanimity. Those are the paramis. And I think last time I talked about how do we deal with the craziness of the world, I talked about wise effort and how right effort or wise effort is an important part of our practice. And I want to talk a little bit about how renunciation, wise effort, and dispassion work together as a team and where they arise from. And of course, please know that this is based on my experience of practice, and yours might be different. So I'm going to talk about what the Buddha taught, as well as my own experience, because it's the only experience that I know of. So the 4 right efforts or 4 exertions, they're part of the Noble Eightfold Path. And we want to bring mindfulness to these 4 right efforts. The first right effort is to overcome unwholesome mental states that have already arisen. Okay, so sometimes unbeknownst to us, suddenly we get beset by anger or frustration or impatience or whatever it is. Then we want to pull out tools in order to overcome this unwholesome mental state that has already arisen. The second wise effort or exertion is to avoid unwholesome things that have not yet arisen, right? How do we avoid unwholesome things that have not yet arisen? This is about creating an environment to where unwholesome mental states will not arise, right? So listening to the news 2 or 3 hours a day with what's going on in the world might be not a wise effort. Where this is concerned, where the chaos going on in the world, right? Especially something in particular that really angers us, or we want to limit this because it'll cause unwholesome mental states to arise. Because this practice is a mental purification process. We're meditating to calm and collect the mind, to use mindfulness to pierce through this moment, to see it clearly. And through this piercing of seeing things clearly, we'll be able to let go of things that cause us and others suffering, right? But we can't pierce through and become free if we don't see what's causing us suffering. And we certainly can't have good mindfulness or clear seeing if we're beset with a mental hindrance like anger, confusion, all of these negative mental states that can arise. Yeah. The third wise effort is to cultivate wholesome things that have not yet arisen. Right? How do we cultivate wholesome mental states that have not yet arisen? We practice compassion practice. We practice gratitude. We practice loving kindness. We practice patience when we're having a hard time or other people are a hard time. We hang out with other people who are practicing having wholesome mental states. Yeah. We don't hang out with negative people, but we hang out with whatever's going to support us in cultivating wholesome things that have not yet arisen. Yeah. And the fourth one is strengthen and perfect wholesome or mental states that have arisen. So let's say we're beset with loving kindness. We just did that practice, right? Where we imagine standing in front of blooming trees and we just really take in the beauty. We smell the smells, we see the sights, we really revel and let the wholesome states saturate every cell of our being. Yeah. So we don't want, when a wholesome states arise, well, this feels really good. We don't want to just like, oh, this was good, bye. We want we want to really just say, wow, this is, this is beautiful. That little boy just gave another little boy a present. I don't know them, but it's so sweet, and they're hugging each other. We want to stop and really enjoy these brief moments that happen during life. We can even say things to people. Like, I like to look for beautiful things that I can compliment people with. That certain qualities that people have, I like to just tell them, well, I really appreciate how generous you are and how you're always looking to do nice things for people. I said that to a girl I spent the weekend with, and she was like, well, thank you. And then another fellow, we went singing competition. He's been videotaping our rehearsals and then posting it on YouTube for us to watch our rehearsals again, to get our parts down really well. And I went up to him and I said, I really appreciate all the work and effort you've gone into recording us so that I can watch it during the week, remember what we learned. And he said, it's made a huge difference. Very generous of you. And he said, wow, thank you. He said, I do it because I want to. He said, but you're the first person that's said this to me. And the only one, yeah. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's too bad. But we do that, We're in such a hurry. We can create wholesome mental states to arise by being kind to people. And then we want to do these things. But where does the renunciation come in? The renunciation comes in creating a positive environment, or creating an environment for wholesome things to arise, and for letting go and overcoming unwholesome mental states, right? So let's talk about renunciation. This is what, from the most basic thing, renunciation is turning away from something, especially if it has, you've previously enjoyed it or endorsed it in the past, that causes you suffering. Right? Causes you suffering. You're turning away from it. Some people use the term letting go. I think letting go is a little bit different than renunciation. Renunciation is more like it's a mental choice. I'm turning away from this. I am not going to put my energy over here anymore. I'm not going to put as much energy over here anymore. It's critical to this path of Buddhist path of purification, because we could constantly be putting ourselves in mental states of things that are going to cause us a lot of suffering, right? By things that we're doing, or people we're engaging, or things that we're engaging with. Yeah, so we want to turn away from that, which doesn't support us on the spiritual path. And we want to take up the mind training of mindfulness and wisdom and compassion. This is this practice. Those are the things that support our awakening, our journey to inner peace. It doesn't mean that we don't care about what's going on in the world. It means that right now I'm busy rewiring this whole mess into something beautiful. Into something that's very wise and caring. And then I'm going to bring this wise and caring new programmed apparatus, and I'm going to bring it to help the world in whatever ways that I can. Yeah. Easier said than done. But the role of renunciation, when I heard about it as far as we renunciate. We become renunciates and we leave the lay life and we become a monk or a nun or whatever. And I actually decided to do that to see what it was like, because I thought it was stupid. When I had an aversion to the monastic life. And then I thought, well, instead of judging and having aversion, maybe you ought to try it out and experience it and see if there's value in that, right? But the Buddha taught that his monastics were to leave lay life, and they were supposed to renounce their families, their friends, money, sex, clothes, practice extreme modesty, just wearing their robes and letting go of all their possessions, shave their heads, and sit and meditate every day and live within the Sangha. Yeah, and to avoid the daily life, right? And the Buddha taught that lay life is filled with tangles. The householder life, he called it, can cause a lot of problems because we get entangled in worldly affairs that stops us from being able to purify this mind. Yeah. Instead, he wanted us to kind of turn away from, renunciate away from worldly affairs and focus on reprogramming ourselves. But the main thing is he also taught that householders could awaken just as well as monastics if they did the practice. But so why is it tangled? Because it's so easily to become attached, right? Attached to our families, to our homes, to our possessions. And this attachment, as we know, is at the root of all suffering. We're not going to get free if we get, very attached and cling to our attachments. So that's why it's so much harder as a layperson, a householder, to become awakened. We have to let go of these attachments. Well, how do we let go of these attachments? We renunciate. We see that we're clinging or attached to something. We choose to turn away from that and turn to something more wholesome. Yeah, like our meditation practice. If we're filled with anger, right, we want to turn away from the things that are causing us anger and turn towards things that bring the opposite of anger, which is loving kindness. Right, so we want to start practicing loving kindness for ourselves and others. Renunciate, let go of this, pick up this, because we're rewiring this. As we get better and better with our practices, we can turn towards difficulties of the world. We can hold them with compassion, with wisdom. We can see the suffering involved without ourselves getting all worked up. But until we've rewired this, we're going to get all lost in greed, hatred, or delusion. Yeah. So we can't all renunciate our lives. We have jobs, we have partners, we have children. Some of us have, things that we choose not to. Yeah. And to just tell you that the life of a monastic is not easy either, because you're living with people. It's like living in a college dorm again with a bunch of people, and I'm not going to get into stories. Okay. But I don't think renunciation is valued in the Western culture, because I think I had probably been at least 30 different Buddhist meditation retreats before I even heard the word renunciation. Have you guys, anybody been on retreat, heard a lot about renunciation? Just a little tiny bit. And it's always been in terms of becoming a monk or nun, usually. So it's not about becoming a monk or nun. It's about letting go of those things that we cling to. Letting go of our false refuges. False refuges are, if I have to have a beer every single night, or a glass of wine or 2 or 3 glasses of wine every night, because it helps relax me, this is a false refuge, because I'm actually poisoning myself. And I can create peace, inner peace through my practice without needing this false refuge. Does that make sense? Not to say you can't ever have a glass of wine or beer, but if you're doing it in order to, save yourself in some way, to change your mental state, it may not be a good thing. So renunciation, sometimes it's misunderstood. I think you have to look at the spirit or your intention of renunciating things. It's not wise to renunciate something out of aversion or hatred, because then what are we doing? We're cultivating more hatred, right? So if I'm like, I'm not going to watch the news anymore because I hate what's going on. I hate these people. I hate this party. Blah, 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 blah. Is that a wise intention for renunciating? No, it isn't, right? But if I see how much suffering that it's causing me, how much stress it's causing me, out of compassion for myself, I'm going to turn away from it in order to help be free from all the suffering. And then I'll gradually take in what I can without getting lost in it, I heard this joke once. What's consciousness? It's that annoying time between naps. Yeah. So if we're not practicing and we're not cultivating, this thing up here, we're not reprogramming it. That's exactly what consciousness is. It's a, thing to get through. But instead, we're doing the opposite. We're letting go of craving, the need to possess. This is the Deva Davitaka Sutta, the two sorts of thinking that Buddha taught, which I really like this sutta. He said, before my awakening, I realized that I needed to divide my thinking into two categories. So he talked about having two baskets and putting the different types of thoughts in different baskets. The thinking imbued with desires for sense pleasures, ill will, harmfulness, in one basket. So any thought, of greed, hatred, delusion, ill will, blah, 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 he's going to put all these thoughts in this basket. And thinking imbued with renunciation, which is turning away from negative things, non-ill will, which is loving kindness, and greed, non-greed, which is generosity, right? He's going to allow any of those thoughts to come into his mind, right? So he's going to focus on that basket. The other basket, he's going to turn away from the basket of the ill will and the hatred and the sense pleasures. Yeah. So he said that you can do this. You can interview each thought. What kind of thought is this? Okay, I'm going to put it over here. I'm going to ignore it. Oh, this is a positive or wholesome thought. Okay, I'll put it in this basket and I'll follow it. I'll follow this one. Yeah. And then he goes on to say, whenever thinking imbued with sensuality had arisen, I simply abandoned it, dispelled it, right? And he said, when one keeps pursuing thinking imbued with renunciation, abandoning thinking imbued with sensuality, his mind is bent towards renunciation. So he goes on to say in the sutta that as you practice these things, it becomes easier. Right? You don't have to stop and go, what kind of thought is this? You just start naturally inclining towards the positive thoughts. So how does dispassion work? A lot of people misunderstand dispassion. They think I'm supposed to be dispassionate because the Buddha taught about dispassion. You'll find a lot of people in Buddhist practice who misunderstand dispassion, and they become like everything's an illusion, nothing bothers me, I don't let anything bother me. This is a state of delusion. And, dispassion or detachment doesn't mean that you're going into some form of, delusional, not caring state. When we're suffering a lot, we turn away, we renunciate away from that to positive things. But the other thing we do is if it causes us a lot of suffering, we're going to explore it with mindful awareness. They teach today rain. We're going to recognize what's happening. We bring awareness to the body, the sensations it causes. We accept and we allow, we investigate how it's affecting this heart, body, and mind. We give it 5, 10, 15 minutes in our meditation, however long it wants to be there. We bring our attention to it, the hatred or the anger or the hurt or the fear or whatever's here. We give it the time and energy it needs until it dissipates. The more we can turn towards our suffering with this kind mindfulness, the more detached, the healthy detachment, the healthy dispassion arises, right? It's like, let's say we're a little kid. Parent says, don't touch the stove, don't touch the stove, you're gonna burn yourself. We don't know what that means. We touch the stove, ow, right? Are we gonna wanna touch that stove again? No, this is an intense example, but we learn, oh, that's painful when I do that. I don't want to do that. So when we bring mindfulness to the pain of anger, to the pain of greed, hatred, and we really explore it with curiosity and intensity and kindness, it's like the hot stove. We look at that and we're like, yeah, no, I'm not touching that. It's a natural dispassion. It's not I'm above everything, I'm detached and I have relinquished the world. It's not that. Yeah, does that make sense? So we don't want to, at this renunciation, turning away from, is we make the mental choice to turn away from these things, right? That's the renunciation. Sometimes we have to find ourselves renunciating over and over and over again. And then we mindfully investigate this draw to something that's causing us suffering. And eventually we start to feel detachment and dispassion towards that which we used to be drawn to, we're no longer drawn to because we see the danger in it. Does that make sense? And of course, wise effort tells us, what we should be focusing on and what we don't want to be focusing on. And we're intentionally creating this wonderful environment. But we want to look at our intention because it can be really unwholesome. A lot of times delusion comes in, it slides in, we don't even realize it. Yeah, I remember early on in my meditation practice, I've been practicing for, about 10 years. And I would go and threaten my family members to be quiet. I'm going to meditate, be quiet. I don't want to hear it. Maybe it was 5 or 10 years, whatever it was. And then one day, one of my children, partner, or whatever, were screaming and running around, making all kinds of noise. And I remember getting really angry, like, why do they disrespect me? And then I started exploring this suffering. I was suffering, right? I was suffering a lot. So I started exploring the mind, heart, and body. And I saw that the delusion was that I had to have a quiet environment in order to be mindful, right? It was delusion. I don't need a quiet environment to meditate and be mindful. I could just turn towards the noise and notice hearing, and how it's affecting the body, heart, and mind. So as soon as I had that insight, like, oh, I'm clinging to silence as a condition for my practice. As soon as I saw that clearly, saw how much I was suffering, I immediately let go of the need for silence. And now whatever's happening is perfect for my practice. Does that make sense? And if I find myself getting annoyed, like, You know, I've got a neighbor who thinks weed eating is a sport. Anyhow, if I find myself getting annoyed by sound or whatever it is, I'm like, oh, there's a, you know, attachment to a particular result. But you got to see it and turn away from it. Turn away from what you were clinging to. I was clinging to silence. I saw that renunciate the need for silence. Does that make sense? Okay. You want to hear one last? This is kind of raunchy. Are you okay for a raunchy story? Okay. Maybe we need to renunciate raunchy stories. Anyhow, here's the holy and unholy parrots. A lady goes to see her priest one day and tells him, Father, I have a problem. I have 2 female parrots, but they only know how to say one thing. What do they say? The priest asked. They say, hi, we're hookers. Do you want to have some fun? Isn't that awful? The woman laments. That's obscene, the priest exclaimed. Then he thought for a moment. You know, he said, I have the perfect solution to your problem. I have 2 male parrots who talk, and I've taught them to pray and read the Bible. Bring your 2 parrots over to my house, and we'll put them in the cage with Francis and Job. Those are his parrots. And my parrots can teach your parrots to praise and worship God. And your parrots are sure to stop saying that indecent phrase in no time. Thank you, the woman responded. This may very well be the solution. So the next day, the woman brought her female parrots to the priest's house. They put them in the same cage, and Francis and Job were inside their cage holding rosary beads and praying, their pious little faces upturned towards heaven with beaks moving slightly as they prayed intently to God. Very impressed, the woman placed her parrots in there, and after a few minutes, sure enough, the female parrots cried out in unison, hi, we're hookers, do you want to have some fun? A long moment of silence ensued. Shocked, one male parrot looked over at the other male parrot and exclaimed, put the beads away, Frank, our prayers have been answered. Bad, isn't that bad? Anyhow, so I hope, I think our intention to be compassionate to ourselves and others is really important. And we're not renunciating out of aversion to what's happening. We're renunciating out of wisdom. Yeah. So look at your intention. It can be helpful for mindful consumption to set limits, find out how much you can take. Each day is different. Some days I can take in a lot more information. I want to stay updated. Choose my sources wisely. You might want to do fact checking and make sure that what you're hearing is mindfully bring your awareness to whatever reactions you have in your body, heart, and mind. Focus on what's most important and cultivate compassion, because these crazy things wouldn't be going on in the world if people weren't suffering, right? And once again, always see what you're attached to and practice renunciation with that. So thank you for listening. Like I said, it's a practice, easier said than done.